not found. And to ensure that the status code of this response is 404, we can open up Chrome Developer Tool. So right click here, go to Inspect, and then on the Network tab, make sure you don't have a filter here, so select All, and then refresh the page by pressing Ctrl-R on Windows or Command-R on Mac. So here's a request that we sent to the server. You can see the status is 404, which means not found. So far, we have created two routes that respond to HTTP GET requests. And we use these routes to get all the courses as well as a single course. In this lecture, I'm going to teach you how to respond to HTTP POST requests. So we use an HTTP POST request to create a new course. So app.post, instead of the GET method, we use the POST method. Now, similar to the GET method, we need to specify a path. So that should be /API/courses, because we're going to post to the collection of courses. That's why we use the plural name here. Then we add our route handler. So request and response goes to code block. Now I'm going to add some line break here so you can easily see this video. All right. So in this route handler, we need to read the course object that should be in the body of the request, use its properties to create a new course object, and then add that course object to our courses array. So let's create a new course object, constant course. Again, I'm using a const here because we're not going to reset this course object later. So let's set this to a new object. Now here, because we are not working with a database, we need to manually assign an ID. So ID. So we get the number of elements in our courses array. So courses.length, and simply add 1 to it. In the future, when we work with a database, the ID will be assigned by the database. Next is the name property. Now we need to read this from the body of the request. So request.body.name. So here I'm assuming that in the request body, we have an object, and that object has a name property. Now, in order for this line to work, we need to enable parsing of JSON objects in the body of the request, because by default, this feature is not enabled in Express. So on the top, after we get the app object, we need to call app.use, and here we call express.json. Now, this may look a little bit strange or unfamiliar to you, but don't worry. Later in this section, we're going to explore this in detail. Basically, what we're doing here is adding a piece of middleware. So when we call express.json method, this method returns a piece of middleware, and then we call app.use to use that middleware in the request processing pipeline. Again, we're going to explore that in detail later in the section. So back to our new route handler. We have a course object. Next, we push it in our array. So courses.push course. And finally, by convention, when we post an object to the server, when the server creates a new object or a new resource, it should return that object in the body of the response. So response.send course. The reason for this is because we're assigning this ID on the server. So we need to return this course object to the client because chances are the client needs to know the ID of this new object or this new resource. So this is how we handle HTTP POST requests. In the next lecture, I'm going to show you how to test this endpoint. All right, to call HTTP services, we use a Chrome extension called Postman. So if you haven't installed Postman before, search for Chrome Postman. Here's Postman. Simply add it to Chrome.